Welcome to another episode of the Manufacturing Executive Podcast. I'm Joe Sullivan, your host and a co-founder of the industrial marketing agency Gorilla 76. What does customer experience mean to you? Is it the way you're treated when you walk into a store or when you sit down at your table at a restaurant? Or maybe it's the ease or lack thereof when you're trying to buy something online. Customer experience is a term that seems to be thrown around quite a bit in B2C buying environments. But the things we experience as consumers, without question, shape our expectations as business buyers too. And that's exactly what we're talking about today. So I'd like to welcome both Sultana Mangal and Annie Dohle of our own agency, Gorilla 76, to the show. Sultana Mangal is an account executive at our agency, Gorilla 76. She's a master at building strong relationships with her clients and creating exceptional client experiences. Sultana works closely with clients to ensure all goals are achieved and that work is buttoned up and ready for implementation. She's also a member of our strategic planning committee. Sultana has an MBA from Webster University, and outside of work, she's a member of the Samovar Network, an organization that converses on community issues affecting the Afghan American diaspora. When she's not working, you can find her hanging out with her 3 dog nephews, Hank, Leo, and Simba. Annie Dohle is also an account executive at Gorilla. She works hand in hand with clients and our team to ensure all goals yield the best results. Annie is an advocate for our clients' businesses and enjoys seeing others have great success. When she's not cheering on the Missouri Tigers, you can find Annie sipping on a cup of Starbucks and playing with her adorable yellow Labrador retriever, Millie. Annie graduated from the University of Missouri with a degree in communication and a minor in business. Annie and Sultana, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
It's about time I had the two of you on here. We're 30-some episodes in, and one of my goals is to highlight different areas of expertise that people from our team bring. And so, this is long overdue. So thanks for doing this.
Yeah, for sure. We're super excited.
This is also officially the first episode where I've had 2 guests join simultaneously. So you two are pioneers in that regard. I'm doing another one of those soon, but you're the first. So we'll see how that goes. Don't mess up, okay?
No pressure. No pressure.
All right, well, let's get into it here. Sultana, you made an interesting comment to me recently about how B2B companies are now almost having to compete in a way with the expectations that are being set in B2C buying experiences. So, for example, think about your experience walking into an Apple store to buy a computer. They're kind of famous for, or an iPhone or whatever, they're famous for their in-store customer experience, or the ease of buying something on Amazon. You think of how easy it is to just find what you need and you've purchased it in 30 seconds, right? So, these experiences that people are having on the business to consumer buying front, are things that everybody who's in the B2B world are obviously experiencing in their personal lives. And I think they're changing expectations about what kind of customer experience people expect in the B2B world too. So I was just kind of curious to hear what you're seeing on this front, because you're the one who kind of brought the issue to light for me. And I was thinking, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah, so I think customers are going to be more demanding when it comes to things like personalization, specifically like in messaging. People want to connect with people and they want to feel like they're, experiencing something that's personalized. I think also transparency just in how you operate. That's going to look different for everyone. And there are so many ways to do it. It might be pulling back the curtain on how you operate or a certain process, or, maybe it's people who tend to be in the background that you bring to the forefront, maybe getting them on camera. Maybe it's an engineer or a safety manager. I think also the speed and the ease of working with you is really important. What does your technology stack look like? Does it take 4 days to respond to an RFQ? Can someone hop on your website and just quickly, get on a live chat and chat with a sales representative? And then I think there's also going to be a lot of value that's wanted and demanded in each touch point, from like an email to a voicemail to a phone call. I think the expectations for all of those are going to be really high.
Yeah, those are all really good examples and things that I'm sure listeners are probably nodding their head at, thinking, yep, that's definitely my world. And it's a lot different now than I think it was 10 years ago, 15. We started our business, John and I, 14 years ago. And geez, the changes in technology, even in that period of time, has significantly impacted expectations for our own customers. So good examples there. Are there examples that either of you can recall, whether it was a B2B experience as a professional or a B2B experience, B2C experience, in your personal lives, where you've experienced something as a buyer and thought, no, that's a really good example of creating a great customer experience?
Yeah, I'll kind of jump in here first. I think the one that comes to my mind and one that everyone can relate to is the experience you receive at Starbucks. It's the one place in the morning where I don't mind skipping the drive-through line and parking and walking in because of that community neighborhood atmosphere that they create. I think they have really set this expectation that no matter where you go, it's the Starbucks 5 minutes from your house or one in a different city, you're likely to experience the same service and environment that you're used to. I used to joke, and sometimes I still do, and it's in our Slack channel. But one of the things I said I would miss most about college is the Starbucks I would go to because they knew me so well. But I quickly realized after going to the one in my apartment in St. Louis that after going there a few times, they grew to know me. They grew to know my order. They would throw in a few drink or pastry here and there, just like the one in Columbia would do. And I think they've also really played into that need for immediate satisfaction that our culture now craves and expects. I mean, you could literally be packing up your lunch in the morning, letting your dog out, and ordering your drink off the app. And by the time you get there, it's ready at the pickup counter. So I think just all these factors play into why a customer doesn't mind paying $3 to $5 for a cup of coffee when they could be getting that for 50 cents at the gas station.
Yeah, great example.
And Starbucks is so interesting because they truly have created the experience around coffee. Like that really didn't exist before Starbucks. You let that 50-cent cup of coffee that you get from the gas station, and you have like the little red straw that you just put some cream and sugar in. Like that's what everyone was used to. And Starbucks created what is the experience around coffee now. And I'm personally not a fan of Starbucks, but I go because it's convenient and it's familiar.
Yeah, and I think you've made an interesting point, Annie. You mentioned like it's a cup of coffee, right? Like that ultimately that's what you're buying, and it's pretty good coffee, but like compared to a gas station at least, right? So, but you're willing to pay, I mean, literally probably 4 times the price that you'd pay at a gas station or something for the same thing because of the experience, the customer experience created there. I think that's a takeaway for anybody in business is, just that point. Like there are ways to differentiate yourself outside of the physical thing you sell. And it probably becomes more and more true the more your product moves toward being sort of a commodity or an interchangeable thing. The way you're going to differentiate yourself is largely going to be in the experience your buyer has with you. So I like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I've had a really good experience with Big Shark Bicycle Company. So they are a local bike shop in St. Louis. Before going in, I didn't know anything about bikes. I was very intimidated by the cycling community. And I went in basically not knowing anything. And the sales rep there was so helpful just because of like this deep expertise that he had. And he didn't use like bike jargon. And so I actually understood what he was talking about. And he listened to what I needed. And knowing that I didn't know what I wanted, he didn't really push like the more expensive bikes on me or anything like that. I ended up getting a bike there, and then I was able to get all my gear there. So like gloves, helmet, like the water bottle holder. They ended up doing a bike fitting. They installed my water bottle holder for me. They installed my bike rack on my car. Like it was just a really great experience. And I remember walking away being like, this is exactly what I needed. And this is the type of like local business that I would recommend to like a friend, just because of like the empathy around the situation, the convenience, and like the listening that was there. It was a overall really, really great experience.
Yeah, I like that a lot. You think of probably a lot of businesses shy away from overextending themselves, something like installing a bike rack on your car, right? Well, there's 5-10 minutes of their time that they can't be, that can't be spent with another customer or something. And they're paying for that employee's time. But you think of the long-term impact and the fact that you're talking about it on a podcast right now, right? Like sharing this with probably hundreds of listeners. You've probably recommended Big Shark to other people now. Every time you need something, you're going to go back there. And so, I think it's a matter of looking beyond the transaction in front of you with your customer and looking at the bigger picture and the life, the lifetime value of that customer and everybody that they're going to touch as an advocate or ambassador for your business, right?
Yeah. And Joe, I remember I posted about this experience on LinkedIn and you commented and you said a $20 pair of cycling gloves today is a $1,500 bike in a year. Every touch point counts. And I always think about that because I could have even just gone in there to get a water bottle. And if they created a really good experience for me, like that would have made it like a lifetime customer too.
That's great. Well, I'm going to have to ping Mike Weiss. He's the owner of Big Shark. I know him personally. John and I did some business with him actually a long time ago, probably good 12 years ago at this point. But I've had a good experience there as well. So shout out to Big Shark Bikes in St. Louis. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, something I wanted to hit on here at our agency Gorilla, we do a quarterly book club. It's not mandatory. Not everybody participates, but many do, or at least, from some quarters they do, some quarters they don't. I've been a part of maybe half of them that we've done. One of my favorite reads that we did as part of our book club was the book Never Lose a Customer Again by Joey Coleman. If I'm lucky, I'm hoping someday we can have Joey on this show. He would be an amazing guest, but his whole platform is about shaping an amazing new customer experience over the first 100 days of them being your customer. And so as two client service professionals, Annie and Sultana, what have you seen to be true in the very early stages of working with a new customer?
Yeah, so I think every stage is just as important as the one prior and the one next. But I would say, I love what Joey Coleman says, where he says, don't tell them how great it is to work with you, show them. And I think this is extremely important when customers are going through that acclimating stage. I think it's important that during this stage, you walk slowly with them, kind of hand holding them through the process so they know what's coming next and that they feel comfortable. I think someone in a position like Sultana and I can often, it's so second nature to us that we can just kind of go full steam ahead. We know what's coming. We know what's going to happen internally with our team, that we really need to take a step back and look at it from our customer's perspective and think about how they would feel. Because once you pass this stage and once the customer feels comfortable, they know you're transparent with them, so you have their full trust and they can see that outline you're kind of envisioning to them. If this stage is skipped, I think that's when that buyer's remorse kind of creeps back in, because they have that nervousness. They don't know what to expect. So they don't know, will the results be good? We don't know what the team is doing on the back end. So I would say that stage is so critical in retaining customers and just showing that customer experience.
Yeah, you hit on the topic of buyer's remorse there, which Joey Coleman, I know, talked about a number of times in that book, and it's something I have absolutely seen, and it's driven a lot of the changes that we've tried to make at Gorilla. You go through, I think there's a lot of psychology baked into that book and his research that led him in writing it, but there's sort of a peak of excitement and anticipation that hits right. I think, I don't remember exactly when, but it peaks right before the purchase actually happens. You've kind of vetted all your options. You're excited about this new solution, whether it's a product or service or whatever it is you're buying. And then you buy it. And now all of a sudden it's like, okay, I just handed over my money and I hope that this is what I thought it was. And that buyer's remorse, or maybe not remorse, but like a fear almost starts to set in. And there's a nervous sense that you get. We've probably all experienced it in our own lives, whether it's, spending $2,000 on a computer or, a new bike, Sultana, right? I think it's so important to think about what you can do immediately and having an intentional plan and process in place for, recognizing the fact that your buyer might be kind of nervous right now. They just made a big commitment, and the bigger ticket your product or solution is, the more likely that buyer's remorse or fear is going to be that it'll be present. So what things can you intentionally do, I think, is what we need to be thinking about to put them at ease, to make them know that you're there, you're a partner to them. So yeah, I like that. And I know our client service team here, the two of you and others who have been in that role at Gorilla have worked really hard to create an exceptional onboarding process for our new clients. A lot of it stemmed from what we learned in Never Lose a Customer Again. But can the two of you talk a little bit about what are some of the components of that onboarding process for us? And although we're a marketing agency, and of course right now we're talking to manufacturing folks, what I'm hoping is that some of these elements might at least spark some ideas for listeners about how they could apply similar concepts and processes in their own manufacturing business.
Yeah, I think we've really refined our onboarding process. I think the handoff is probably the single most important component of that. Whether it's a good or bad handoff, it's going to set the tone for the entire relationship. And it's something that Joey Coleman also just explains, that it's so important to create that meaningful experience after the sale is made. And that starts with the handoff. That's a really important part. I think the kickoff meeting with all of our new clients, and for people who are listening and their new customers, it's a call where the account executive and then our main point person, we'd meet and set expectations and just get excited about the relationship. And I think sometimes that's forgotten early on, is that this is really exciting that we get to work together, that we get to partner together. And so it's an opportunity to just kick things off and celebrate. And then also, I spoke about transparency before. We have created a client manual. You can call it a customer manual, but it's basically this idea that I got from David Baker, that we have laid out everything and anything related to Gorilla, like how we operate, how we bill, how we give feedback. It really breaks down so many different parts of our organization, and it's laid out for anyone to see.
Yeah, that's great. And I love how that handbook has evolved, because it's, you're taking all the questions that we've heard over the years from people during those first few phases, or things that have been worries or concerns, or how do you handle this, and what if this happens, and it's all right there for them before anything even begins. And so you go, and then the expectation setting, I think, is great in that first meeting. This is how we expect communication to happen if we want things to be successful. And it's not like we're dictating. Like we're acting as dictators. They're saying you will do it this way, but we're demonstrating to our clients that we're experts in this. We have seen things go wrong and things go right in different scenarios, and if we want things to go right, this is how we believe things should play out, and you get on the same page about that. And sometimes you might hear from a client, well, that's going to be tough to do because of this reason or that, and then you work through it. But at least that conversation has been had before the problem occurs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what I also love about the client handbook is basically just a longer version of our kickoff call. So if the client, may feel overwhelmed in the kickoff call, here they have this manual that they can go through at their own time, where it goes through our revision process, introduces team members, and so forth. So I think it's something that's really helpful at the end of the day to the customer.
Good add. So how about when you get beyond those first 100 days, or whatever you want to consider your sort of orientation period for a new customer? For some listeners, it might be the first day, but depending on what kind of relationship you have and what it is that you physically sell your customers, once you get through that onboarding phase, what are the things that an account manager inside of a relationship-driven B2B company can proactively do to enhance the customer experience on an ongoing basis?
I think just having conversations, once a month or bi-monthly, when you're talking with your customer about how you can improve roadblocks they're seeing, working with your team, and just really overall nurturing that relationship. They can be tough conversations to have, and you may not want to have them. But that at the end of the day, it's going to be how you improve and how you provide that excellent customer service, which you are striving for.
I think, and Annie, to add, I think that's all really good. Nurturing the relationship is really important, continuing to just provide value and just to be a source of knowledge for them. I think a really great position to be in is when the client or customer just has a question and they reach out to you, and you may not know the answer, but you can at least point them in the right direction. And I think just making sure that they know about all of the different services that you offer, because sometimes, they may not be aware of like post-purchase support that you offer, or maybe there's a new service offering that you have. I think keeping them updated on that is really important.
Yeah, good examples. I'll tell a quick story of what's probably been my favorite B2B experience on the buyer's end. We'll give some props to the company that produces this podcast, Sweetfish Media. I conduct these interviews and every week and record them, and then we throw our files to them, and they make them sound really good and put the beginning and end, sound bites and all that on there and help us get it published. But when we were thinking about launching this podcast, probably a year and a half ago at this point, Logan Lyles over at Sweetfish was the sales guy who was my main point of contact. And from the first touch point I had with him, he was purely helpful. He was just helping me figure out, like, is podcasting even right for Guerrilla? What things do I need to be thinking about? Who could my audience be? I was talking about maybe trying to do it on my own without a producer, and as opposed to trying to convince me we should hire them, after the call, he sent me a list of links on Amazon for all the equipment I should buy if I want to try doing it all myself, and, tips. And I'm like, geez, this is, just genuine, authentic, helpful sales process. Well, some time passes there. We're starting to think about hiring them. COVID hits. We're being real budget conscious because we don't know where anything's going. And he kind of continued to just check in and always provide something helpful. It was never an aggressive sales pitch coming at all. It wasn't a sales pitch at all. It was just little helpful nuggets, examples of things that might be helpful to me as I just keep thinking about this podcast thing. And so when we did decide to launch, it was, first of all, it was a very obvious choice that we were going to hire them as opposed to another company that frankly was almost half the price of them. But I could see the value that was going to be created. And then what was most amazing is after the sale, it only got better. I was put in touch with Dan, one of their guys who's an expert in marketing on the podcast front, and he helped me work through naming of the show and convinced me to name it The Manufacturing Executive as opposed to some, I don't know what I was going to call it, something more metaphorical. It probably didn't even make sense, and it had reasoning for that. He helped me figure out how to what I'm going to do with all my assets after the show. I had Rita, our account manager, sort of the equivalent of YouTube, but on the podcast side, who was just always responsive, checking in on top of things. And then it was all the little things like, I don't remember what it was. I think it was when I hit episode 25 or something, all of a sudden in the mail, I get this little package, and it's right here. You're looking at it right here if you're watching this, but there's like this little, with our podcast logo, like a microphone box to go around it, a little branding element. They sent me like a thing to put on my wall with the logo on it. And with just a handwritten, note, welcome to Sweetfish. Thanks. Congrats on making it to episode, whatever it was. And so, simple things that it didn't cost them much at all. But it showed that they cared and were there. And then the other thing they did is they sort of welcomed me into they're real active on LinkedIn, and they've helped sort of prop up the show on LinkedIn and help me get exposure for it. So these are all the intangible things that you don't necessarily even know you're buying when you buy something. So I love to use that example and sort of just challenge our own clients to think about what is your version of that for your customers? How can you make them feel special? Know that, help them know you're in their corner and that you're working towards the same goals. So anyway, I thought I'd throw that in there.
Yeah, I really like that example because for clients who are listening, it really doesn't always have to be some huge, just big thing. It can be those smaller things too. It can be smaller touch points. It can be smaller delights, quote unquote. And I think those are still contributing to an overall really great customer experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. And I love to plug in Sweetfish again, but that's where we got the idea for that welcome video intro that we sent to our clients.
Yeah.
It's just everyone records a quick 30 seconds of themselves saying what their role on the account is. And it gives that personal touch point to the client that otherwise we probably wouldn't have, besides showing a picture of them in our kickoff call. So just again, that personal communication, they can put a name to the face when we talk about them in calls, is extremely important.
Yeah, that's a great one, Annie. I love the impact that can have, especially, at this moment in time when there's less in-person, interaction happening. And just to add a little context there, basically what we do is we say, all right, who are all the people who are going to touch this new client's account? We all just simply, we turn on our Zoom or whatever, Loom or whatever tool we've got for recording a quick video on our desktop. Camera on, click it, introduce yourself very naturally, unscripted. This is who I am. This is what my role is working with you. Excited to be here, excited that we're going to be working together. And then we just sort of compile them, and it winds up being probably a 3-minute video with an intro. And that's been really well received. And I think it's something that any company, regardless of what industry or world you work in, could do to add sort of a personal touch at the very beginning of a relationship.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So the two of you are, of course, in client service specific roles, but I know you're both big believers in the philosophy that every touch point that a company has, regardless of who is making that touch point with a customer, contributes to the overarching customer experience. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I could go on a tangent about this.
Please do.
I think it's so important and it's overlooked so many times, but a customer is going to remember every interaction, good or bad, they had with you or one of your team members. Right now, I think this is so interesting. I'm reading the book, The Cult of the Customer, which I think everyone should read. Sultana recommended it to me. But in the book, the author describes these like moments of magic where at its best, it's a touch point anyone in your organization has with a customer that's just like exceptional, out of the world. And at its worst, it's still above average than what they would expect from a different organization. He goes on to say that this really starts internally. So having your employees feel these big moments of magic with your colleagues, management, and building that trust from within, because then it will obviously transfer to the customer experience. So I think it's just so important to show your employees, and this is something Gorilla does well. I've noticed clients do it well as too, but just building that trust from within, because at the end of the day, if you show them, they're going to show it to the clients, and that's how you make loyal customers. It doesn't matter if you're in a meeting with the customer or it's the IT specialist walking them through, their website redesign. Every touch point matters. And if they have a bad experience, they will remember that subconsciously next time they talk to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so important. There's so much value in taking B2B customer experience seriously. Your customers are only going to become more and more demanding. I think we know that, we've seen that. This idea has to be adopted throughout your company in every single department. And I always say that it starts with the leadership team. It starts from there and it has to trickle throughout the entire company because it truly is not on just one person's shoulder to carry this, but it should be throughout the entire company. So it is a touch point for each of those.
Yeah, great points there. Well, is there anything that I should have asked the two of you today and did not, or anything you'd like to add to the conversation?
More of just like a comment for the people listening. I think when you're thinking about for your own company, like think of a really great customer experience that you've had yourself. Write those down. Like if it happens, write it down, come back to it. If you had a bad experience, write that down too. Write down the why. And then figure out how you can translate that to your company. Like what small things, what big things, whatever it is, like what does that look like for you? I think there's a lot that we can learn from B2C because in B2C, things are only getting faster, things are only getting better, and quality isn't being sacrificed. And I think there's a lot that we can learn for B2B.
Yeah, and I would just also say, no one is perfect, no company is perfect. You're going to make mistakes. Like some moments you won't have great customer experience, but it's how you react to those moments as well. And just like Sultana kind of said, just think about your everyday life. If you had a great interaction, think about, wow, how could I translate that into my work, no matter who you are at a company?
Yeah, great way to put a bow on it. I think those are all really good points. And just because we're operating in a B2B world, doesn't mean that the things we experience in a restaurant, at a bike store, at Starbucks, right? It all the thinking behind that behavior is, I think, what you look at, and then you just figure out, how do I apply this in my own world? And in some ways it'll probably become kind of obvious, so we just need to be conscious of it.
Yeah.
Well, very good. Great conversation today. I appreciate the two of you doing this. I think it may have been your first podcast from what I heard from you, and I think you nailed it. So nice job.
Thanks, Joe.
Awesome. Well, obviously I know how I can get in touch with either of you instantaneously through our company's Slack channel, but our audience doesn't have that same privilege. So sorry, audience, but Annie and Sultana, can you tell our listeners the best way to get in touch if they want to follow up or have any questions?
Yeah, just connect on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way.
Yeah, I would say the same. Both of our LinkedIn profiles is on gorilla76.com under our bios. So just go ahead and connect.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you both once again. And as for the rest of you, I hope to catch you on the next episode of The Manufacturing Executive.